right. Well, welcome to another episode of Crestview Leads. Today, I've got my good friend Catherine Pittman with me. Welcome.
Thank you.
So good to have you.
Good to be here.
So, Crestview Leads is a podcast by me, Tim Bolduc, City Manager for the City of Crestview, where I talk to anybody about anybody I want, about anything I want. We usually talk about leadership topics. And so when we came up or birthed the idea of this program, Catherine, your name came up immediately as somebody that is, in my circle of friends, people I know that have influence on me, and especially I've been able to watch you kind of develop this your business over the last couple of years, and you've really kind of become a leader in our community. And so, wanted to bring you on here today and have a chance to talk to you. So I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's today. I think what our topic is going to be is getting outside your comfort zone.
Well, that's fitting because that's where I'm currently sitting, outside of my comfort zone.
Right, exactly. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what you do, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I own the Property Group 850, which is a real estate company here in Crestview, and we opened about 3.5 years ago.
Right. So Crestview native, how long you been?
I've been here for about 16 years now.
Okay.
Before that, in Fort Walton mainly. Went to school in Fort Walton, graduated from Fort Walton Beach High School.
Oh, nice. Yes, I went to Fort Walton as well, so that's cool.
All the cool people did.
Yeah, the cool people did.
Definitely.
You probably went more than I went, though.
Probably.
Yeah, I would imagine. So, yeah, I didn't grasp the whole point of school until maybe college, which was a little bit later in life. So. No, good stuff. So 16 years you've been here. What did you do before the Property Group?
Before the Property Group, I worked at another residential brokerage here in town. And before that, I worked rental management for Sundance down in Fort Walton Beach. That's where I got my start with my real estate license.
Okay. All right. So what did you do before real estate?
Oh, all kinds of stuff. Waited tables. That was probably my longest thing. Waited tables at Chili's for like 9 years.
I love me some chips and salsa.
That will teach you a lot about life.
Right.
And people.
Right. What's your favorite thing you learned about life at Chili's?
We used to have on Sundays, people would give you, instead of tipping you, they would give you a card about God, but not tip you.
But not tip you?
Right.
Oh my
So I was like, this is not the best way to bring people to the Lord. You know what I'm saying?
So that is
like a $200 tab when you got a card. Oh. And I love Jesus and I go to church.
Right.
But the card was very disappointing.
Right. Exactly. You were like, well, I won't see you there.
Right. I was like, we have to work on your game. Like how you're going to get people to come to your church is probably not the best.
Right. So your most important thing you learned was really poor sales techniques then?
Yeah, I think it's poor. Yeah, there you go. Poor sales techniques.
Sales
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. So, all right. So we met. How did we meet?
I believe when you were interviewing to be the city manager and then building your house.
Right. Yep. So I had, Catherine, you work with Link Grant, and he was the builder of my house when I got here. That was a pretty funny experience for me. I came up here I had lived in Fort Walton the majority of my life, and then I moved to Navarre. And then, so when I came to Crestview, this is where I want to be. And so I said, hey, I'm going to build my home. We're going to stay here. And so I went out looking for builders, and that was tough. Nobody wanted to build the house for the new city manager. They didn't know if I was going to be here long enough.
Right. Are we going to get paid?
That's so funny. A real funny story with that real quickly is I was actually in the car with a friend of mine, and I had asked a couple of different builders to give me prices on a house I wanted, and so one of the guys didn't, and so someone I had met, we were going to lunch, and he makes a phone call and gets this guy on the phone. The guy doesn't know him in the car, and he goes, I'm not building that house for that guy. I have no idea whether he's going to be here or not.
Oh, no.
Oh, my goodness. What have I got myself
No faith.
Yeah, so Link was either brave enough or crazy enough to take on the task, and then you kind of oversaw or did our project management for us. So, right. So let's talk about the Property Group. So our conversation today is about getting outside of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons I wanted you for this topic is because, we do have known each other for a couple of years, and we were friends before you started that business.
Yes.
And I remember kind of you going through that process. And so you're successful already in real estate. You were comfortable, could do, doing just fine, right? Taking care of yourself and your family and all that. So tell us a little bit about the decision-making process. How did you go from being responsible for just Catherine to how many agents you have now?
I believe 52 right now.
52 agents. So
yeah.
originally you're responsible for just Catherine. Now you're responsible for 52.
Those were the days, man. No, I'm just kidding. But it's a different, totally different mindset now. So I was working at the brokerage I was at. I'd been there for about 10 years. Was perfectly happy where I was. And the opportunity to purchase what used to be Century 21 was given to me a few years before that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not ready for this. Like, I'm not financially ready. It wasn't on my radar at all.
Right.
So then about 2 years later, they approached me again. Would you be interested in buying it? And at that time, I thought, okay, maybe I could do this. I said, let me finish building my house, because I was in the middle of building my personal house, which was taking much longer than yours because you were on the fast track. So we probably had 4 or 5 months left on the house. And I thought, okay, at the beginning of the year, I'm going to strongly consider this. This was on a Thursday. And I told them. On Friday afternoon, they called me and said, someone else wants to make an offer on the property. You have till Monday to decide.
Right.
So that was when the pressure was on. Because, like, it's different when you're like, this is a maybe I could do this, to where you have 72 hours to possibly change your life forever.
Right. And at that point, you had 4 or 5 months to kind of digest the idea.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to come up with a business plan, and I'm going to have goals, and I'm going to figure out if this is going to work. And then it was like 72 hours. You don't have time to do anything.
Right.
You either yes or no this.
Yeah.
So it came down to, I thought, okay, if I drive by this building every day for the rest of my life and I don't go for it, I know I'm going to regret it. Yeah.
That and I mean, I remember you came by, saw me, and we had a brief conversation about it, during which, you was like, hey, what do you think? What should we do? Do you remember what I told you?
I think you told me it would be that I would do great, that the business would be successful, and I had nothing to worry about.
That's it. That's what I said. Along the same lines of what you said. I said, so first of all, you got it. You're going to do great. You're going to rock it. But also, if you don't do this, somebody else is going to.
100%.
What are you going to do, right? How are you going to feel about it then?
Mm-hmm.
So how many times have you wanted to punch me in the face over that?
Every day, no. Ultimately, I'm so happy that I did it, and I see how it's changing other people's lives, how it's changed my life. It's just a huge undertaking. It's still a huge undertaking every day, and I feel like now we have a plan, and we have goals, and we have all these systems in place, but it's still very challenging every day because just things change every day.
Right. So 53 agents, I think you said at the beginning. So 53 agents really are kind of independent agents, right? So, So just like in a nutshell, how does a brokerage work? Like, what's the difference between a realtor and a broker, and how?
So a broker is kind of like a management. You're the upper management, and you're responsible ultimately for the 53 people that are signed under you. So if they make poor decisions, if they don't execute documents properly, ultimately all the contracts are between myself and the buyers and sellers. Okay. So you have agents that work underneath you, and then a portion of your income goes to the brokerage. Right.
And so then before you took on this, the property group, you only had to worry about getting Catherine's stuff.
Yep.
Right. And then all of a sudden, so when you first decided to buy it, what was the number? Did you have a number of realtors that you thought you would try to pursue?
Nobody. Honestly, when I first purchased it was myself and Jason that works with me. We were just going to move our license from one brokerage to another. There were 2 agents that worked at the company already. One did property management, one did sales, and I had zero thoughts about expanding. I truly didn't. I didn't want to be responsible for everybody. I didn't want to have to do all the things. It's still going to be me, but instead of paying broker fees, I'm going to pay a mortgage on a building. Right. And I was like, this is great. I can leave this to my kids, and how very quickly all of that changed.
So what caused it to change, right? So at what point did you start picking up agents?
Yeah, so
it was probably Jason's crazy idea.
No, a long time ago, it had been his idea for a while. So we had been there, I would say, probably about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I had a couple agents reach out from my previous brokerage and say, would you consider us coming too? And I kind of just had to pause because I literally had no plan for that at all, of what that would look like, how I would structure things. Did I want to be responsible for all of that? Right. But then I was also extremely flattered that people that I very truly respect in the business wanted to come work with me. Yeah. And so I kind of had to take a step back and say, okay, this wasn't on my radar, but could it be on is this something I could do?
Yeah, it's something we see often. We talk about leadership and the things that motivate people. And I get an opportunity now to go and talk about that stuff a lot. And one of the things that we see is a lot of times people have all this great potential within them. But that potential sometimes gets held back by fear. Mm-hmm. And so when they see somebody that they know and they trust and they respect go ahead and step outside of that comfort zone, it really starts to, lessen that level of fear a little bit because somebody else is doing it.
Yes.
And so that's some of, what I think maybe you saw or we've seen since, because you went from 0 to 2 to, 53.
Yeah,
right.
Very quickly. And without a lot of, it wasn't recruiting. It was just people I worked with and people I knew. And then other people in the office would say how much they liked it, which was amazing. And then,
right.
It just kind of grew from that.
It's addicting.
Yeah, it is. Because I'm like, okay, if all these people like it and love it, what about all the other people that are out there? You know?
So it's good stuff. So when did you open the brokerage again?
We opened it in August of 2020, right before COVID.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. Yes. So, you decide to get out of your comfort zone. So, you said you started kind of in the restaurant industry, and then you went into working for somebody else in property management, then got into the real estate side. Then you got kind of connected with Link and new construction and real estate together. And then you purchased the property group or the business that is now the property group. And so now you've got agents. You're no longer responsible for just Catherine, and, cometh the COVID.
Yes.
So then what?
And then they tell us, we don't know, can we sell houses? Can we show houses? That was a huge, for a couple weeks, we didn't know because they closed down everything.
Right.
We thought, what is this looking like? And then I thought, oh my God, what did I do? I bought this brokerage, then COVID hit, what is happening? But it turned out to be the biggest blessing of my entire life. The timing and all of that is the most successful years in real estate that I've ever had came in out of the years of COVID.
What drove that? What do you think drove that?
I think honestly, people spend a lot of times in their houses and they decided they didn't like them anymore. You're really close. True. A lot of people think about how much time you really spend at your house in a day. You get up, you leave, you go to work, you come home. But when you're working from home, you may need that extra office. You may need the extra space. You may just be further away from people in your family and have a bigger house in general. Yeah. And I think that really pushed that housing market at that time.
Yeah. So one of the things that we saw for sure, there's a couple things that happened during COVID. One, we had a strong governor. And so our governor said, hey, we're not going to close down. We played along with the little 2 weeks to slow the spread. We did that game. But then after that, it was Florida's open for business. And here in Crestview, we were adamant about Crestview's open for business. I tell the story, and I've probably told it on the podcast already, but I tell the story about the Crestview Commons and me calling those guys in New York that were putting that project together. And, I'm talking to them and they're locked in their apartment and couldn't go anywhere. And I'm saying, listen, Florida's open, Crestview's open. We're going to do your inspections. We want you here. And so, people started to migrate from some of these places where they didn't have the opportunity to get out to Florida. And so now all of a sudden, what was already a growth rate for people coming into the state that was right at what we could handle, that continued to grow. And so we saw some of that. So you saw people, like you said, kind of trading your houses and then an influx of new people.
Yeah, the out-of-state buyers are great because I think some of them, when they weren't allowed to operate business as usual, decided this is not the life that I want. I'm moving to Florida. Right. And a lot of them were cashing out houses up there and buying down here cash. So that coupled with the interest rates, it's literally the perfect storm.
Absolutely. And the going back to working from home, we one of the things we definitely saw during COVID was an entirely new market. Or I guess the reduction of an existing market, because used to you had office complexes and things like that, where people were having these 1 and 2 office space rentals. Well, now people are working from home, so businesses save on the overhead and all that kind of stuff. Are you seeing that shift? You said you saw it in the housing side, but what about on the commercial side?
Yeah, on the commercial side, there was definitely a little bit of a lull when that was happening because I think on the commercial side, people were apprehensive because of the work from home. Right. So we had some of the commercial units in town that would sit for a little bit. Now definitely seeing an uptick in that where those are not sitting anymore.
People are figuring out they don't want to be home all the time?
Probably,
is that what you think it is?
Yeah. And I think just entrepreneurs getting out there and they'll see an office space, renting for $1,200 a month and they have a dream and it's like, let's do this.
Right.
Those are my favorite. I love those.
Yeah, those are the best kind. Right. Those are awesome. So get through COVID, business is doing well, growing as an agency. 2% interest rates on housing.
Right. I mean, give me those days back.
Right. And then today, what's the going interest rate?
In the 5s to 6s.
Okay, so that's
on
better.
What type
so
of
it's
loan.
down a
Yeah.
little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
it got as high
definitely
as
down from
8.5.
how. Yeah, it was in the 7s. Some people even in the 8s, depending on different criteria.
Wow. Yeah. So now what? So then the sky's falling again. People are in your industry. Honestly, we're kind of upset and worked up about it. And so one of the things that I remember from you is when I was watching a lot of these real estate agents or just people in that industry in general start to talk about, oh my goodness, we're on the cusp of another collapse. You were putting out videos saying, hold on, slow down.
Right.
So why? First of all, what were you saying, and then why?
Yeah, so I think you find exactly what you're looking for.
Say that again.
You find exactly what you're looking for.
That's
if
so
you
good.
go
I like
on the news and you watch all the gloom and doom and everything that's happening, and a lot of those news channels are at the national level.
Right.
We are a completely different market here. And I have these discussions with people every day. They're like, oh, we saw this on the news. I'm like, okay, where was that at? Was that New York, California, DC? Those are totally different markets than us. So what I was telling my agents is I'm like, look, houses are selling. Why can you not be the agent that's selling them? But everybody else got so hyper-focused on like what they didn't have instead of looking at all the opportunities that were still there. There's still military moving in. There's still people that are having kids that need a bigger house. There's people that are divorcing that have to sell their house. They're not going to stay married to each other for a 2% interest rate. That's not the reality of it, And if they're moving to another military base and they want to buy another house, a lot of times they're going to sell the house here or they're going to rent it. There's so much opportunity. You just have to go out there and get it.
Right. And really, if I'm going to sell my house, I don't want somebody who's terrified of the market.
Yeah, the sky is falling, Chicken Little. I'm like, guys, we literally are hired to sell property, and you're going on the internet and telling everyone how terrible everything is. Like, you don't see that connection, that's not a good idea?
You know what was interesting for me, too, is so we saw some roll back in the actual cost, right? So it planed up. In COVID, it got crazy.
Yes, the material cost on new construction was insane, too, during that time.
Right, delivery of materials, and then the material costs themselves, and all of these things. We saw, on a little bit bigger scale maybe, but on a water tower, I watched 100% increase in the cost of a water tower over a 2-year period during COVID. Well, so we all saw that kind of stuff. But then, when the rates went up, the prices came down a little bit. And so if you've got a house you can get for $20,000 or $25,000 less than you could have got it before, but then you're telling them don't do it because the interest rate's a little bit higher. Well, over 30 years, that interest rate comes down, you refinance.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a real estate agent.
Yeah, but there's so many factors like that. So I think you have to look at, I always tell people, what is your plan? How long are you going to be here for? What is your ultimate goal here? Because if you're only going to be here for a couple years, get the payment that works for you. That's what's most important. You're only going to be here for a little while. If you're going to be here long term, then you have to look at the project differently because it's over time. Where could you refinance? Could it go lower? But typically when the rates drop, the house prices are going to increase. You're going to have more people, you're going to be competing against more people, and it's not the spot you want to be in.
Right.
Go in when the inventory is high and the buyers are low.
So you told me I had some meeting, and so I messaged you and asked you, hey, what is, give me some statistics on housing, and you talked about this thing called the saturation rate. So
absorption rate. So the absorption rate is if not one more house went on the market right now, when would we run out of houses?
Right. So what is that in our area?
So I'll have to check. I would say between 2 and 3 months right now. I looked at it last month. I haven't looked at it for this month yet. But that means if nobody put another house in the market, we would run out in less than 3 months.
Yeah.
That's huge. Like if you can't wrap your head around how drastic that would be, we have all these military people coming in. But in 3 months, we'd be out of houses. So that's very important to keep an eye on that number.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing to me. So let's before we start trying to run out of time, there's a couple other things I wanted to talk about. So who in your life kind of invested in you that you think gave you the courage to go and say, I'm comfortable, I'm good, but I'm going to go ahead and step outside that box? Is there one person that you can point back to people, somebody who invested in you that you think maybe helped you have the courage that was necessary to take this step?
Well, I think definitely people like you that told me I believe in you and you can do that. The Moulton family, Rick Moulton, telling me Catherine, you can do this. I believe in you and you have this. And I thought, well, if they think I can do it, then, maybe I really can do this. But I think part of it was just doing it scared, I think was so vital I think if I'd have been 100% comfortable at everything, would I have pushed as hard? Because
That's such a
I
good point.
sit there and look and I feel like all these eyes are on me. And honestly, I feel like there were some haters cheering for me to fail, you know, oh, she thinks she can do this and it's going to be so easy. So I think I pushed myself at a different level because that fear was still there.
Right.
You know, like I know everybody says this is going to be good, but okay, now we have COVID and now we have property taxes and we have mortgage payments and all these things. Like, is this really going to be okay? Are we all sure about this?
That's so good. That's so good. And so, you know, I was having a conversation with actually one of my firefighters the other day. So we just added some additional requirements to them where they had to go, if they didn't have their EMT, they're going to get their EMTs, which is some medical training, emergency medical training.
Right.
We just want to make us better at it. And so we're sending them to school and all this. And so I had one of my students or one of my employees who was a student was so concerned about it. And he comes up to me, he's about halfway through, and he said, hey, I just want to let you know I'm leading the pack. And I told him, I said, you know, man, if you would believe in yourself half as much as I believed in you, then you wouldn't have spent all that time wasting your stress or wasting your
right.
Sometimes I think the same thing, you know about you. I was like, why are you even, you don't need
that
me
was
to tell you.
We said, like, what? You're nervous about this?
Yeah, what are you even worried about? I've seen some of these other people that are getting it done. You can get it done. No, so that's so good. So what are some of the things, so you got 53 agents. When you go to pick an agent or you allow them to come on board, because really at the end of the day, they're picking you, you're picking them. Right? They got to want to come work with Catherine, but Catherine also has to trust that when they cross their T's and dot their I's, that paperwork is right. What do you look for when you sit down to talk to a prospective agent and you talk about them coming on board with the property group? What are you doing? How do you make that decision?
So I think there's two different things. I kind of want to know what your drive is, your hustle, your why.
Okay.
Like, why are you doing this? Because
Right.
some people tell me like, oh, I just want to get a part-time job. I want to get a side job. You know, I don't feel like they're fully invested.
Right.
And not that you can't work at the brokerage part-time, but it's much more time-consuming, I think, than a lot of people think when you're in it. The other part is, are they only money motivated? I don't want people that are only money motivated. Money's super important. We all have. We're not doing this just for fun, you know. But if you're only money motivated, I think sometimes you make decisions that might not be the best decision for everybody if you're only motivated by that paycheck. So
is there, I mean, I don't want to give your secret away,
yeah,
but I'm going to. So is there like a particular question that you ask them or something that helps you to gauge where that motivation is? Is it just like what's most important to you, or is it, you know, are there ways that you can see? Because I think this is important because that's true for everything, right? And so as leaders, we have a limited amount of capacity that we can give.
Right.
So there's only, you know, most of us want to help everybody. And we want to help people reach their full potential.
Right.
But the reality of it is, who you choose to spend time on there's a limited amount of time. And so, is there a particular question or something that you ask that helps you get there, so that you don't spend time on the ones you don't need to?
Right. No, definitely. So I think it's more of a conversation than a specific question. But one of the big things to ask is like, why are you leaving where you're currently at? Because it can be very telling.
I love that question. I do that too. My favorite thing, and here's a cheat code for people when you're filling out a job application.
Right.
Don't say I'm leaving because the management's horrible.
Right. Yes, exactly. Like, what is your why? Because a lot of times what I see is the things that are the problem are actually them, and not what they're stating is someone else's fault.
Almost always. Right.
And I tell them, like, I'm here to give you snacks. I am not here to give you a full meal. Because if I feed you all the time, you will never go out and get it for yourself. And I can only give so much. You'll never reach the level you want to reach if I'm just like 3-course meal. I'm like, here's a pack of crackers, man. Let's go hustle. Like, let's do this, you know?
So good.
Just enough to get you to where you want it for yourself. I can't just want it for you because I want it for all 53 of them. Like, I want y'all to crush it.
Right.
But I've learned over time that not everybody wants to be super successful at their own responsibility level.
Yeah, that's, you know, it's been that's been something that I've struggled with getting my mind around, because I like when I look at somebody that works for us, or, you know, anybody. Sometimes we have an opportunity to influence people outside of the people that work for us, and so when I look at them and I'm thinking, man, you know, there's so much potential there, and I can just see it, and then they don't want to get there. You know, I have a hard time figuring that out.
Extremely hard. Jason tells me that all the time. He's like, Catherine, not everybody is you. Not everybody wants to work like you want to work. But I'm like, but they could be so good. I know they could do great. They would be so successful. Right.
It's crazy. And I think, you know, but what I'm learning along the way too is, you know, I believe that we are created for a purpose. That, you know,
absolutely.
That's my belief system. And so I believe that if I'm created for a purpose, that I'm going to find some joy in executing that purpose. Right.
Absolutely.
So if that's true, because otherwise, then if I was created, the thing who created me wouldn't create me and not make me happy doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Right. So when I go out and do that stuff, if I'm not inside of what that purpose is, I'm not going to be happy. So if they're just there for money, right? Purpose is always going to be greater than that. If there's not a connecting somebody to their dream and or whatever it is, the dream of home ownership, right? Yeah, so that's a pretty amazing. Cool, especially because sometimes it's not easy, right? Right. If it's an easy deal, any agent can do it. Exactly. Yep. But they're not easy. And so that's super cool. And so you're able to kind of extract that from your conversation.
Yeah, I think you just sit down. It's very quickly. Usually within like the first 10 minutes, I can kind of feel if it's a fit or not. And that's always a little awkward when it's not. But I know that we've worked so hard to create the culture that we have at the office that one more agent coming in is not worth losing what I have.
That's so good. Yeah. I mean, because, we all, and we've talked before about low, middle, and high performers. And I think you were telling me maybe granddad or dad.
Yeah, my granddad about you have attic people and basement people in your life. There's people that are bringing you down or they're bringing you up. But then my daughter taught me, because I told her that one time about a friendship, I said, look, I feel like she's a basement friend and she's pulling you down. And she said, but Mom, what if I'm the attic friend and I'm bringing her up? And I was like, dang it. Like, this could be true, but I still don't want you hanging out with her. But I think that's important. Like, you need those people in your lives. You need to hang out with attic people that can bring you up, that are at that next level that you're not at yet.
That's so good. I tell people all the time, you need to be in two places in your life at all times. You need to be pouring into somebody else, and then you need somebody pouring into you.
Yes.
And because if you just are sitting underneath people or sitting with people that are pouring into you, you're just filling up and overflowing, and nobody's catching the beauty of it, right? If you're just pouring into other people, you're not refilling.
Right, your bucket gets empty.
Your bucket gets empty, and so that is so cool. How do you pick the people that pour into you then?
Oh, I have such a good group. There's a group of 7 or 8 of us that meet every Monday, and we call it Mental Health Monday, and we get together and we talk about real estate and what's going on. But just people, I see like the drive and the passion for what they do, not money related. I see them want the sale so bad for the purpose of crossing the finish line, getting the people happy, and then the paycheck comes secondary. And having those type of people in your life really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I really do believe if you can, and I did sales for a lot of years, I believe that if you figure out your purpose, and if you can connect that purpose, the rest of the pieces all fit.
Yeah, you take care of the people and the people take care of you. And I think the community involvement we've had has been a huge reflection of that, is just getting involved, getting out there, and truly wanting to make Crestview a better place.
Yeah. So how do you do that? So Property Group has a ton of there's a ton of things you do giving back to the community. You did this very cool thing a couple of years ago for the Christmas. We won't talk about last year's Christmas parade because it was almost the death of me.
Yes.
Since we didn't have it. But the year before that, you called me up and you said, I got this wild scheme. I'm going to hand out like $10,000.
Yeah, we gave out $5,000 to random people in golden ticket envelopes.
Right. And so I'm thinking, how am I going to, the security and all this
kind
of
of
stuff.
Can we not get mugged when it's happening? Right.
Exactly. How do we do that? So, So I've known you in the Property Group to be very much outwardly focused. So why? I mean, why would you do that? Because, I mean, it's important to grow your business, right? So you want to kind of hang on to what you got to some extent. But so how do you decide? How do you create that balance? Why do you do it?
Yeah, so my why, I'll try to do a super quick version of this. So about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, my daughter was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And they did an article in the newspaper about it. And that newspaper got forwarded to a man in Birmingham. And the crazy part is, like, they don't forward newspapers. So how that newspaper got to Birmingham, divine intervention only. But a gentleman there read the newspaper about her story and paid off my entire mortgage. Never met the man in my life. And I just thought, like, why would you do that? Like, and he just said, this is my opportunity to make your life better. And people have poured into my life. So because of that, I will never forget how that changed my entire life. And I think, even though I'm not at the level yet where I can do that, hopefully one day I can, but just those small moments of things you can do for other people, whether it's paying for the coffee behind them, whether it's giving them $100 in an envelope at the parade. I mean, we had moms reach out and say, like, you literally saved Christmas for our family. And, like, I see how wonderful our office is, and I know that's not just a coincidence.
Right.
That we're doing so well when other people are having to cut back and stop, and, the market's not so great for them, and here we are still thriving. I think that's just because of the pay it forward that we're trying to do every day.
Absolutely. That's so good. Well, listen, we are almost out of time. And so what's the one thing, give me one thing, you got like 30 seconds.
Okay.
Give me one thing, if you could speak into the lives of people who are coming up in the real estate industry, and they want to be successful and they want to be able to continue to give, what's one thing you would tell them to do?
You have to work. That's the one thing. There is no quick pass. You have to get involved in your community and just work, whether it's working on real estate or working on those relationships, but you have to put in the work. There is no like fast track, cut to the front of the line. It just doesn't exist. You have to put the work in.
So good. As always, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I appreciate you coming in, hanging out with us today. We'll definitely get you back.
Yes.
And you've got a podcast coming up. Have you named it yet?
No, I still have not come up with a name. We're still working on it.
All right. So when that thing comes out, we'll be happy to kind of share it on here. And
I would love to.
Hopefully we get a chance to stop by and do a show with you there.
Yeah, sounds awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. And everyone, thanks for listening.